The message landed while I was fastening a silk scarf for a regular at my boutique. I'm done. Leaving for Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I emptied the joint account. My hands didn't tremble. My smile didn't crack. If anyone noticed anything at all, it was the way my eyes narrowed for half a heartbeat, then smoothed out like crease-free satin. I finished the sale, silver wrapping, crisp bow, a polite thank you, and only when the bell above the door chimed did I type my reply. Good luck. I'm Claire. I'm 38. And that was the laziest breakup in the history of breakups. While he no doubt pictured me collapsed on the floor, I turned the sign to closed and slid the deadbolt. The truth? I'd seen this train rolling for months. Late nights at work that didn't line up with payroll deposits. New passwords, new gym routine, new clothes tight enough to audition for his second adolescence. And 3 months ago, a receipt, dinner for two at a place he couldn't afford on a weeknight, was the last puzzle piece I needed. That same evening, I opened an account at a bank he didn't know I knew existed. A week later, when he floated the idea of combining everything to simplify, I smiled and said sure, while quietly relocating my savings. The joint account he just cleaned out? It held just enough to look normal. The rest of our history, every sketchy charge, every hotel, every working late that wasn't, lived in a neat date-stamped file he would never see coming. Another buzz. Don't beg. Melissa and I fly out tomorrow. I'll send for my things, Melissa, the new receptionist. I'd shaken her hand at the office Christmas party while she laughed a little too loudly at his stories and reached for his arm like a reflex. She was so young she still thought effort and attention meant love. I didn't answer him. I called my attorney, the one I'd quietly retained 2 months ago when the hotel folio posted to our card. It's time, I said. He made his move? She asked. On the record, I replied. The paperwork's ready. I'll file first thing. Want him served in Miami? Let him enjoy the fantasy for a minute, I said. Then wake him. Another ping. I know this is hard. You're not getting younger. At least you have your little shop. My little shop. Built from zero. Profitable and legally ring-fenced from the mess he just made. The condescension almost made me laugh. Almost. He thought he'd detonated my life. He didn't realize he'd only tripped a wire I'd laid months ago. I drove home, my home, past the old oak that shades the porch I grew up under. I'd inherited the house. The deed was in my name alone, and had stayed that way, no matter how many times he suggested making it official. Another message. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay until you find something smaller. I actually laughed this time. The audacity. As I gathered documents my lawyer would want, I found our wedding album, 2 kids smiling like promises were permanent. The man in those photos had slowly been replaced by someone who spoke in jargon he picked up from interns and wore shirts that begged for breath. My phone rattled across the table with more texts, boasts about planning this for months, digs about my age, a casual, told my family. They agree we drifted. I screenshotted everything. Evidence isn't emotional. It's useful. Then came the gift. BTW used the joint card for flights in the Royal Palm. Consider it a parting present. Perfect. I dialed the credit card company. Mrs. Harrison, reporting fraudulent charges. Please cancel and remove an authorized user. Charges? The rep asked. 2 first-class tickets to Miami booked today, plus the Royal Palm reservation. Documentation? Text messages. He admits using our card to fund a trip with his girlfriend after draining our joint account. I can forward screenshots. The rep's tone stayed professional, but I heard it. The tiny click of satisfaction as she reversed the charges and cut off his card. I pictured him and his new life at the airport tomorrow, stunned at the counter while the agent shakes her head. The hotel? Poof. A final ping for the evening. We can work out a fair payout for your half of the business. My half. Of the company he called a hobby every time I worked late to make payroll. I poured a glass of the good red I'd been saving. If survival had a taste, it was full-bodied and unapologetic. Tomorrow would be strategy. Tonight was quiet. I wasn't broken. I was busy. Morning brought fury. What did you do to the card? Airline won't honor the tickets. Hotel canceled. Answer me! I set my phone face down and rolled up the boutique's front gate. New shipment day. Designer handbags, buttery leather, clean hardware. The bell chimed, customers flowed, and the world kept turning. Around noon, his mother called. Speakerphone while I adjusted a window display. Claire, dear, Mark says you're being vindictive. Did he mention emptying the joint account? Or charging a beach getaway for him and his receptionist on our card? Silence. Then a small voice. He said you'd been cold. Barbara, I have texts. Would you like me to read the one where he gloats? Another pause. He was unkind. I told him that message was inappropriate. My attorney recommended minimal contact during proceedings, I said gently. I think that's best. Proceedings already? She whispered. Already? I said, and ended the call. By late afternoon, the Grapevine had done what grapevines do. Apparently, their dream departure stalled at a budget motel near the airport. His personal cards? Maxed, another red flag I'd logged months ago. When my attorney checked in, her voice held a smile. Emergency hearing set for Monday. Strong grounds to freeze what's left. Service papers on the way. To the motel. My phone lit again. You think you're clever? I copied all the boutique's financials. Half is mine. I forwarded the threat to my lawyer and filed it under. Thank you for the admission. He assumed my silence meant defeat. He didn't recognize strategy when he saw it wearing lipstick. If you're into stories where the weak one quietly flips the board, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. If you're enjoying this so far, give it a like. It really helps the channel. And tell me below, what would you have done right after that first text? Monday morning came fast, but I was ready. Mark, on the other hand? Not so much. He strutted into the courthouse in jeans that clung like they belonged to a teenager, a blazer 2 decades too young for him, and the kind of swagger that only lasts until the judge starts speaking. Melissa hovered outside. Her youth, once his trophy, now looked out of place under fluorescent courthouse lighting. My lawyer opened our file like a magician revealing a trick everyone else had missed. Your Honor, she began, we have text messages where Mr. Harrison gleefully admits draining their joint account, screenshots of him booking travel with a girlfriend using the joint credit card, and a year's worth of receipts showing a pattern of deception. Mark's lawyer stammered. My client made rash decisions, but Mrs. Harrison has been vindictive. Vindictive? My attorney cut in smoothly. Or prudent. She kept separate assets, separate documentation, and detailed records while her husband treated their marriage like a bank he could rob on his way out. The judge's gaze shifted to Mark. Did you or did you not admit, via text message, to deliberately emptying the joint account and using the shared credit card to finance a trip? Mark shifted in his too tight blazer. I was trying to make a clean break. A clean break through fraud? The judge shot back. And now you claim rights to property that documentation shows belongs solely to your wife? Mark's lawyer sputtered something about the business growing during marriage. My attorney didn't even glance at her notes. Mrs. Harrison maintained strict separation of personal and business finances. This boutique isn't marital property. It's hers, established, funded, and run independently. Every screenshot, every receipt, every smug text where he thought he was winning became a nail in the coffin of his case. When the judge froze all remaining assets and ordered him to return the money he'd drained within 24 hours, Mark's face flushed beet red. But it's gone. We already spent. Then you'll need to find a way to return it, the judge said dryly. And with that, the grand escape plan began to collapse. Outside, Melissa caught up to him, her voice sharp with questions. What about Miami? What about the hotel? I didn't stay to hear the answer. My heels clicked against marble as I walked out, not running from disaster but moving forward, exactly as I'd planned. The fallout came quickly. Mark's sister spread word that he and Melissa were stranded at a budget motel, trying to stretch her receptionist's paycheck while he scrambled with frozen accounts. His mother's second call came laced with shame. We didn't realize how cruel he'd been. His words about your age, The way he bragged about draining your money. I listened but didn't answer. Their sympathy had an expiration date, and it had passed. Then came the desperate text from Mark. "Half that boutique is mine. I made copies of all your records. You'll regret this." I sent it straight to my lawyer. Another self-inflicted wound for his case. For the first time in weeks, I felt something shift. Not anger, not grief. Power. The kind that comes when you stop reacting and start steering. He wanted me to fall apart. Instead, I was building the blueprint of his downfall. The weeks that followed were like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Only I wasn't on board. Mark tried every trick he could think of. First, he claimed he'd been my silent partner, that my boutique only thrived because of his support. My lawyer countered with receipts, incorporation papers, and a neat binder of evidence. Next, he insisted he had invested in the early days. Again, records showed otherwise. His last desperate plea? That his moral support counted as financial contribution. The judge actually chuckled when my lawyer read aloud his texts calling my boutique a hobby and mocking it as your little shop. Moral support, indeed. Melissa didn't last long either. The studio apartment that felt adventurous at first quickly became cramped with a middle-aged man sulking on maxed-out credit cards. Her social media posts shifted from beach selfies to cryptic quotes about toxic relationships and lessons learned. Within weeks, she changed her status to single. I almost felt bad for her, almost. But then I remembered the smug way she touched his arm at that Christmas party, and sympathy vanished. The final divorce hearing sealed it. The judge awarded me my house, my boutique, and my separate assets, all protected by the foresight Mark used to call paranoid. He got his personal belongings, an aging car worth less than the loan on it, and the humiliation of moving back in with his parents at 45. The man who once sneered about my age now slept in his childhood bedroom, his mother nagging him about laundry. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. When he hissed outside the courthouse, "You destroyed me?" I didn't flinch. "No, Mark," I said. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure you didn't take me with you." Over time, the gossip only fed my business. Women came into my boutique not just to shop, but to support. Local magazines featured me as a success story, not a victim. Within a year, I opened a second location, then a third. Each new ribbon cutting was another reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't fire, it's flourishing. Mark's life, meanwhile, unraveled further. Demoted at work, a reprimand for his office fling, failed dating attempts that ended the moment women Googled his name or heard his history. He dabbled in gambling, in get-rich-quick schemes, in excuses, but never in responsibility. Years later, at the grand opening of my third boutique, Melissa appeared. Older, wiser, and clutching her purse like a shield. "I owe you an apology," she said softly. "I believed him when he said you were cold, controlling. But then he tried the same tricks on me. I should have known better," I smiled politely. "We all learn lessons," I told her, turning back to arrange a display. Some just cost more than others. Now, a framed screenshot of his very first text hangs in my office. "Have fun with your little shop. At least it'll keep you busy in your old age." Beneath it sits my latest business award, proof that success really is the best revenge. Mark thought he was ending my story when he pressed send. He didn't realize he was only setting the prologue of a better one.